Welcome back, guys, to the Bacon Decker podcast. This will be episode 3 and the third part of our series about us and our lives. Last episode was all of high school. And middle school, I think so, right?
Yep.
Yeah, middle school and high school. So this one is going to be after high school till now, I guess, essentially. Or I guess we could do 4 years when you got back. And then after that, we could kind of split it up into different series topics.
Yeah, I mean, even then we'll just kind of they'll get filled in on it as far as
yeah, for sure,
all that goes. But I guess the best place to get started is right after high school and kind of getting everything situated, ready to, I guess, be adults.
Yeah, for sure. Right out of high school, I guess I'll start. Right out of high school, I started my job full time at a grocery store. I'm just going to leave it kind of like at grocery store because I don't want to get anything in trouble or be too descriptive of everything. At this time, I was working full time as an everything person, which is like I was working stock, grocery, like cashier wise, and also in the meat department, and pretty much just doing whatever they needed. And I started this job actually during high school, my senior year. When I turned 18 in December, I got the job in January. So as soon as I turned 18, I started looking for a job because I knew I wanted to start working right out of high school. I didn't want to go to college. I did not want to further my education anyway. I just wanted to get out and start working. And, I did that for, I want to say 6 months. And then I ended up going to an office job for probably another 6 months, 4 or 5 months maybe. With the same company, but it was at their office instead of the store. At this point, I got a little bit of a pay raise, but I didn't like the office setup. I didn't like just sitting in a cubicle day to day. It was awful. I got my work done fast because I was used to working in a grocery store where time was everything. Yeah. To sitting at a desk and doing my work too quickly, and I'd get done early and then not have anything to do. A lot of days I just sat and just browsed the internet in the cubicle because I was done. Nobody was going to say anything as long as I was getting my work done. But it turned into sitting there for hours thinking, like, I hate this job.
Just because you were...
Yeah, because I was done.
Yeah.
That was the first year for me. Your first year out of high school was completely different than mine.
So for me, obviously, and I covered in the last podcast, that I was completely dedicated to joining the military, and I covered how I was recruited and basically leading up to me leaving for boot camp. So when I left for Marine Corps boot camp, it was September 7th. It was that evening.
Because you were around for a little bit after high school. I remember, right?
Yeah.
You didn't. It's not like the first month right out you were gone.
Right. No. So I was around. I got to enjoy my summer, which was my plan. I wanted to just have like my last kind of, what do they call it?
I guess high school years, like that was like the final summer before you become an adult.
Yeah, before I really had to like settle in and focus up. Mm-hmm. So I got to enjoy all that time and really just have fun before my life would change. So I left for boot camp September 7th. I had the craziest time of my life, the confusion and the chaos there is insane, and I could go on and on and on and on about all that, but to say like briefly, once you get on the bus and you're on the way there and your heart's beating and you're like, oh
there's
my
no
gosh,
going back.
Yeah, there's no going back. Like I'm out of control at this point. Mm-hmm. So
you're just along for the ride.
And you pull onto base, and then the MP gets on there, and he says, all of you, you have to show your IDs. So you show your IDs, and he's like, all right, all of you put your heads between your knees and don't look up until drill instructor tells you to. And so we all did. We tucked our heads, and we're terrified. And they drive for so long. It felt like an hour just driving forever. And then it's the middle of the night. Drill instructor gets on the bus after it stops, and he's like, all of you get off my bus right now. You know,
You just
you just jump up and you run out of the bus and you get on the yellow footprints and you wait, you know. And from there, I mean, it's just a chaotic 36 hours of getting issued all your gear, you know, moving back and forth, getting your hair cut, not, you know, being so confused and disoriented. You have to call your family and tell them you made it there safely. Just crazy stuff, you know.
stripped down to nothing, really. You know,
Yeah,
starting fresh.
By the time those 36 hours are up and you're getting ready to move into your squad bay, all of your stuff that you came there with is in a brown bag. You know, like I got issued a different pair of glasses. You know, we're in camouflage utility uniforms now. I mean, we got a whole bag of stuff that's ours now.
Wow.
You know, and then some. And that was ours. You know, and all of our stuff that we came there with is in a brown sack, and it gets tucked away until you leave boot camp. You know, and I think, you know, looking at that was where, you know, obviously my life took a turn, you know, onto a different path. But
when you didn't really expect it to take that path. Even then, I guess you probably were like not aware of what you had really decided still.
Right.
Like you're like, wow,
you
this
know,
is...
the recruiter, he prepares you kind of, you know, he's like, this is what it's going to be like, kind of, but he's also not trying to talk you out of it. So
Right.
he doesn't tell you everything.
Yeah, he's not going to... He's sugarcoating it, essentially.
He's gonna get you enough to where you're like, kind of know what to expect, but, you know, once you get there, the shock is just crazy.
Overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, Marine Corps boot camp, 13 weeks long. And so from September until December, I was in boot camp, you know, constantly doing something. I mean, you know, it's a rigorous time, but I came out of there December 4th, a changed person, definitely.
Yeah, that's not how... It's so crazy because up until you got back 4 years later, we had, maybe a few weeks together when you would come back and forth visiting. Mm-hmm. And even then, those few weeks, you were so busy. I remember you're like, well, I got to go here on Monday, here on Tuesday, here on Wednesday. I've got a little bit of time on Thursday, a little bit of time on Friday. Mm-hmm. I think one week you come back that year, we literally just had dinner together at Double Dogs. Mm-hmm. One night. That was it. That's all we've seen each other for the entire time you were here. Just because you were so busy with family and friends as well. So, I mean, 4 years pretty much. Again, we separated, and obviously this was a lot more experiences than in elementary school because this is us as adults, as us learning who we are, what we want to be, and what we want to do. Yeah.
I mean, all of a sudden life is happening. It's no longer like you're a kid sitting there in your house doing this and then going to school and then
I can't
home.
wait to be an adult.
Yeah. Jeez, that was so stupid.
Yeah. And everybody says that too.
Yeah. You know, looking back on it, it's like, man, I would give anything to go back and be a kid again.
Just to sit and play Xbox for a few hours every day, and just, you know, we had school, and then you come home and you play Xbox up until dinner time, and then do your chores, and then you go to bed, and that repetitive process. I mean, what I would do to just get to play for a few more hours.
Yeah.
And just not a care in the world.
We were just talking right before this episode, and, you know, we were talking about how, you know, I said I can't even sit there for, you know,
sure.
You know, more than an hour or two before, you know, I got to get up and move because my body will start hurting, you know, my back or my knees or something.
I just lose interest now.
You said you kind of get sleepy.
Yeah, even if it's an adventurous game or something very interactive, I'll still get to the point where I'm like, I think it's time to get off. Like, I'm just going to get up and do something. And then I might get off the Xbox and not do anything else, but I could not sit there any longer to play. I remember during the summer, man, 12 hours a day.
Oh, yeah.
Unhealthy amounts of just sitting and playing Xbox. Now, my brother and I played a lot more than most in our friends group. Like, if they got on, we were on normally. Like, we were always... I remember during the summer, I was pretty much nocturnal. Mm-hmm. I would get up probably about 12 or 1 in the morning or afternoon and stay up until 10-ish the next day. Jeez. And then go to... Like, I was like completely opposite of what I was supposed to be. Right after school ended, I was on that reverse schedule.
Yeah.
And obviously not healthy. Like, it wasn't a healthy option for me to play that much and to not do that much. I mean, games are not bad for you, but you've got to limit yourself and still be active enough to keep your body in shape.
Yeah.
And which I did not. Obviously, still not.
Well, I mean, in high school there was times, you know, I mean, You definitely slimmed down once we were playing airsoft every weekend.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Your cardio was pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, because at one point, you were running up and down the field down at Hellhounds, and
Yeah.
I mean, you could do it. And
I definitely got better there by the end.
mm-hmm.
But then once I started working, I obviously I picked up a lot of weight because I went from the office job back to the store full time, and pretty much essentially like a manager in training. At that point, I still did everything. But it was very clear that I was probably going to be an assistant manager at some point, which within 2 months, I got an assistant manager job at the grocery store. And I don't think I was assistant for maybe 3 months at the most. And then the store manager stepped down. And that's when I actually, at 19, I became a store manager.
And that's a hell of an accomplishment.
Yeah.
For a 19-year-old kid.
It wasn't a big store. I'm not talking Walmart or Kroger size store. It wasn't that large of a store. But at 19, almost 20, is when I got store manager. You're talking substantial amount of money income increase for somebody who is still at home with their grandparents.
Yeah.
That has a cable bill at this point because I was trying to start YouTube. So I invested my own money from my first check to buy internet that could support streaming and support uploading videos. So I already had in sight, like I was like, okay, YouTube's what I want to do. I'll go to work, but then after that, I want to focus on YouTube, which you get in relationships, you lose sight of YouTube or lose sight of your hobbies because you're trying to keep that relationship together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of put it on the back burner for the longest time. I was in a relationship for 3 years. So I did not push YouTube at all during that just because between work as a store manager, anybody in management knows that it's not just when you're there, it's off the clock too. You'll get phone calls for if something blows up. By blow up, I mean like something shut off, a refrigeration unit, or a customer comes in mad, or anything like that. They're going to call you. So, I'd get home, I'd try to do something for YouTube, and then I get a call in the middle of it, and I'm like, well, crap, I'm just going to throw that whole video out. Like, it changed my whole mood, and I just didn't get into it. So, for sure, for 3 years, I just I focused on the job and I focused on the relationship, which obviously ended. Which 3 years sounds like a lot, but I honestly don't remember much about it. You know what I mean? Like it's just a blur at this point. It's been 6 years now since I got out of high school, right? Roughly.
How old are we?
23. I'm 23.
Well,
Gotta be 24 in December.
4 years since we got out of high school.
It's 18, yeah, 22. So 5 years. It's been almost 5 years, right?
2015 to now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 5 years, probably almost to the day.
Yeah. So 5 years from now. So it's been 5 years, and I don't remember that time in my life. Obviously, I was going through things after the breakup. I started to realize that I didn't know who I was really. Like I was living this whole lifestyle around the relationship and around the store, keeping the store running during all of that. I realized I didn't know what I wanted to do. I realized I didn't know what interested me as a person. So at that point, I kind of fell out of the job. I still was there I've been at my current job for a year, or a little bit over a year, like a year and a month or so at this point. So a year ago, I left that job. And honestly, it's like, it's a blur. Like from the time I worked at the store until I left the store, I don't remember much. I honestly just remember getting up and working. I was paid for 50 hours a week. So 50 hours of my week was at that store, at least. Not including if something blew up or if somebody called out and I had to go to work. I was there for at least 50 hours a week. Definitely 50 hours a week. I don't remember a week I worked less than 50, honestly. So it's definitely at least 50. And I'm glad for the experiences I had there at the store. I learned how to, do a lot of things, hands-on experience, public experiences with customer service. But I would never go back and do it again, for sure.
You want to tell the story about the customer who tried to steal from you?
Which one? It's like, as a manager, I'm sure you guys all know and can relate that shoplifters and stealing, and just in general, people trying to get anything for free is... The customer service is awful. Like it is such a mental strain on your body and on your mind that I would not go back and do it again. I don't miss a single day whatsoever of my job before the one I'm at now. Obviously now I work for Clark, which is distributor for Coca-Cola. The pallets get dropped off at the store through a semi, and then I show up in my own personal vehicle and like unload the pallets, and I stock the shelves at the store. So I'm still in a store, but I'm only worrying about a couple aisles compared to the entire store. I don't have to manage anything.
Yeah, you're not even attached to the store.
Right. So I show up, fill up the stores, and then I go home and I leave it at work. And that is honestly the best option for me, is to cut it in half. You work and then you go home and you leave it at work. And I think everybody needs to do that to a degree.
While you're going through all this store manager stuff, of course, once I finished all my combat training and my schooling, I moved on to living in California for a little bit, in Southern California, Camp Pendleton. I was stationed there for about a year and a month or so, and I got to, perform what my job was. I was an ammunition technician, so basically what that means is I worked in...
Which is not what you wanted, right? I mean, it's not really...
No, so I didn't necessarily want that. I signed a logistics contract, and so what I wanted to do is I wanted to be a landing support specialist. So, we would be there when stuff was offloaded off of the ships. We would help load ships, put gear on there, and then also there are these things called helicopter support teams or something like that, where helicopters that transport cargo, they're there to help unload and offload the cargo, and that's what I wanted to do. But I got this job, an ammunition technician, which required me to know how to handle ammunition explosives, store it, issue it and receive it and transport it, every single thing you could imagine, so, and I worked with ground ammunition, so nothing that went on planes, but anything from the rounds that went in our pistols and rifles to howitzer rounds, the tank rounds, all that stuff I got to work with, rockets. So, and when I got to the fleet, which is what we call kind of your first duty station, your workplace, the fleet where all the Marines are once they're out of their training. It was a different experience, because when I got to the fleet, I was expecting, all right, every NCO is going to be like, tip top fit shape, and they're going to be smart and fair and just the ideal Marine, right? Because of course I'm coming out of training and I'm still young and stupid, I guess. Not necessarily stupid, but ignorant of like
how it really
went. How it really is. And I'm not on here talking about it to talk crap about the military, because I'm not that type of person.
Right.
Everybody who joins the military benefits from it in some way, and whether you choose to stay in or you choose to leave like I did, there's pros and cons.
It still made you grow as a person, obviously.
Absolutely.
I mean, like the experiences you had, you would have had completely different experiences if you had stayed here. So I mean, it did craft you into the person you were or are now. Like without those experiences, who knows where you would be. I
mean, without a doubt, I would not trade any of it. I wouldn't trade any of the experiences I had.
I guess I say I don't miss a single day there, but I'm the same way. I mean, I did what I did for those years at that store, and it progressed me to be who I am now, to realize what I was worth compared to working for this store that I wasn't really making that much. Like for a store manager position at that store was not what you would think it was. I mean, I was not making bukus of money. I mean, if it tells you anything, the job that I'm doing now actually pays more than I did there as a store manager. And all I do is fill shelves for Coca-Cola. That's all I do. The rain give me a little bit like...
a little bit of heartburn?
Yeah, a little bit. But I wouldn't trade the experiences I had there just because going into working where I do now, I wasn't very physical by this point when I left that job. I weighed 430 pounds when I started at Clark, and I dropped 65 pounds. I weigh roughly 360 now, which is still heavy. But for me...
To lose that much weight?
I left high school weighing 360, 355, 360, somewhere in there. So to go back to what I was in high school, doesn't sound like a lot to a lot of people, but 60 pounds is a lot of weight to drop. At this point, I just started taking blood pressure medicine before I started Clark, and I actually do not take the medicine anymore. My heart rate has gone down enough to where I don't have to, or my blood pressure has gone down enough to where I don't have to take the blood pressure medicine, which is great to me. For it just shows that I just need to have that incentive. Active. Yeah. So I mean, I never could get active consistently. I would start working out, I would start running, or I would start doing cardio and trying to burn some weight. I just never could stick with it. With the job that I had there as a store manager, there's days you just go in, you're like, I hate coming here. I hate it. It drains you mentally.
Yeah, and you just want to come home and you just want to sit down and relax. I completely understand that.
So when I went to Clark, there's no relaxing. Yes, it's 10-hour shifts at least of filling shelves, physical labor, on your feet at all times. You get a 30-minute lunch and 2 10-minute breaks. Technically, I don't even take my 10-minute break until I'm done with my first store, because I'm just so focused on getting it done, because those morning hours are when you're really going to get stuff done, because you're at your big store. You get it, like normally on a route, you get a big store and then a small store. So you want to get that big store done before it starts picking up business-wise and you have customers in your way. So I do personally, I go until 12, 1 o'clock, and then I take my 30, and then I work the rest of my shift until 4:30 at least. And I can remember my first few weeks being dead. My body was so out of shape that when I got home my first day, I almost just slept in my car, because I didn't know if I could get out of my car and into the house without something falling off of me. Like I felt so weak and so embarrassed in a way that I can't believe I'm this sore just from working 10 hours today. And I mean, I fought through it. A lot of guys don't. A lot of guys do not make it 1 year, which I'm very happy that I did, and got through it. For myself personally, like, the job itself is what it is, but personally, I felt like I accomplished a lot to drop that weight and also get paid for it.
And keep it off.
Yeah, and keep it off. I mean, I eat terrible still. I still go to fast food restaurants or out to eat. I don't control my diet at all. That's just from working physically. I haven't changed any diet habits other than the obvious ones. When you're working like that, you don't want to eat as much. So I went from eating a pretty large lunch at work to eating like a sandwich or something for lunch, because if you eat a lot, for a physical job, you guys know, if you eat a lot, after that, you don't want to work. You're like, I don't want to do anything else. I'm going to go home. I'm full. I'm ready for a nap, So that did change, but it wasn't intentional. It's just that's how my body changed to the work of the job. I wouldn't take that back at all, to drop the weight and to be healthier now. Because if I didn't, I feel like I would be in terrible shape by now, just in a year's time. If I'd stayed in that job, not only the physical aspect of it, but mentally, it was so draining that a lot of times I'd come home and there was no drive. I'd lost all drive for anything outside of work. I was dating on websites, because as a worker that works that much, you really don't have time to go out and experience life and try to,
go on the dating scene and the bars and such.
So I did date online, and that's how I met my fiance now. And she changed everything for me. I'm going to keep it kind of short and not sappy, but when I met her, I realized that job was not for me anymore. And I left that job and I started at Clark, because I realized I had a life outside of work. Up to this point, it was like I lived to work, and that was it. Yeah. So when I met her, it turned into this, why am I working 60, 70 hours a week for a store that I get paid for 50 hours a week? And then I'm too tired to do anything with her. Yeah. So I was like, well, I'm going to find something else. So I found something else that could support my bills. At this point, I have a house. My grandparents retired and gave me the house, which we're in now. And I had a house payment, because I technically bought it from them. Right. So I have a house payment, car payment, and other bills as well that come with being adult. You just have phone payments and, utilities. And so I couldn't just up and quit my job that I had, because I had a certain amount of money that I needed monthly. So no, it didn't pay as much as a store manager job would, you would think. But it's not like I could just leave and go make $250, $300 a week and be okay. I needed a substantial amount to keep myself afloat.
Yeah.
And I found something, got on at Clark, and like I said, I actually got paid more there my first week than I did my last week as a store manager. Which I did pick up extra shifts. I actually worked 6 days almost every week the whole year up until here recently, where I'm putting myself to not work as much just because I want to put effort into other things outside of work. Mm-hmm. I take those 2 days off of work to mentally clear my head and prepare for the next work week.
Yeah.
Because you do bring it home if you work 6-7 days a week. Obviously, you're working nonstop and you're just thinking about it, even if you don't try to. So, yeah, that's my work. I mean, like I said, very short version of it. I mean, I could sit here and talk about more details and more things about the work, but all together, it's just about how that work made me who I am.
Yeah.
So definitely out of high school, working for 4 years and continue to work now. I wouldn't trade that experience, like just going straight into the workforce and seeing what it's like to really just people
start
forget
from the bottom, and
people forget you. You leave high school and you're like, oh, I know so many people, and then you realize, like yourself and others, they go and leave. They go to the military or they travel somewhere else, and you don't see them ever again. You realize that high school, knowing who you knew, didn't really mean much. You start fresh, like you start from the bottom again, and you have to work your way up through companies that essentially is like high school. You have to work your way up and be liked among them to progress yourself in the company, which a lot of companies are like that. Get your foot in the door, and then after that, just prove yourself.
Yeah.
So, and that's how I took careers and working.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so going back to where I was in California, and kind of seeing how things were, because at this point I'm a Lance Corporal. I was meritoriously promoted because I did so well in the schoolhouse where I learned my job. So I'm in the fleet and I'm trying to learn how to do my job, which I'm working in the storage section at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I've already gotten like my Humvee license, because before I could go down to work my actual job, my NCOs and my platoon sergeants, they were like, all right, we need to do this course online, the Humvee course. You gotta know how to drive a Humvee. So before I could go to work, I had to learn to do this course. So I did this course online, and they sent me the actual course, which turned out to actually be really fun. So, getting into the fleet and then kind of immediately going what we called TAD, or away from the unit, to this course was really interesting, because all I had to do was show up to another school, basically, another class from 7 or 8 in the morning until 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and with lunch in between. And we just learned about driving the Humvee, and it was a 3-week course, because it ended up, either the Humvees would break down, or, the instructors couldn't come and instruct us for whatever reason. But it was so cool, because, this was before they modified the courses, so we actually got to go on the night drive with NVGs on and blackout lights. That's so we were driving with the NVGs on, and the only things you can see are like these little they're kind of like IR strips on the back of the trucks and the fronts of the trucks, so that's all you see, and it's scary, because of course you realize, oh man, I actually can't see, because NVGs, they look really cool in like the video games, the movies and stuff, but you can't actually see that well out of them in real life. NVGs, for those of you that aren't following at this point, are night vision goggles. Or in our case, we only had the one, so it was just a binocular, so we just had one. But
so you just essentially close the other eye to see out of that, or
no, you just keep the other one open.
That would mess with me. I feel like,
because otherwise,
both.
Which you can't really see anything because it's pitch black outside. We were driving in the middle of the night. But I do remember this one really cool moment where we're getting tested out for the night drive. So we're all sitting there, and we're in our flak and Kevlar, we're sitting in the motor pool waiting for, because we had to take turns. There were only so many instructors, so they had to ride in the passenger seat with the students.
Right.
So they drive out, and we're sitting there. Well, at the same time, the artillery unit is, doing their night shoots. They're practicing. And where we lived on base, we could, the artillery's like shooting right next to us. They're near us on the range. So they're shooting over our heads, and you can hear the rounds. And then all of a sudden, just the flashes of light coming from the range. And it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
That's so cool, and it's just the way it would light up. I mean, it was just a really cool moment. I remember.
And you're like I am. You could talk about certain experiences you had throughout those years working in that environment, but it's like overall,
it's very tedious. All these different moments you had, which are good and bad.
I still catch myself to this day sitting and thinking about certain moments. I'm like, I remember when such and such happened, and so did this, or it's just it's a constant. It's constantly in there. Yeah. Like I still have flashbacks to this day of certain moments and certain situations, where good situations, obviously, and sometimes bad, but overall good, where I'll catch myself just smiling or laughing at like something I've thought about.
Just a good moment in your head, because I don't know. When you look back on stuff, you remember more of the good than the bad, but in the moment, you always focus on the bad more than the good.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, you could do 100 good things in one day, and there'll be something slightly bad that just ruins that entire. At least for me, personally, I could have a great day, and then something so small, bad happened, and it just ruined my entire mood, which is not a good thing to have, obviously. But I will catch myself like. Now I try to catch myself think, silver lining. Think about, well, it could have been worse. It could have been better, but it could have been worse. And that gets me through those moments where I'm just like, man, this sucks. Well, you know what? Today's not been too bad. I did this, and this. Yeah. So, that one thing, whatever. But what good came out of today? Yeah. So I catch myself thinking that way instead.
And, I mean, the reality of, like, my situation, especially where I was, and being with the units that my MOS, my job, are with sometimes, where we're actually working in the storage facility, it can get very overbearing at times, because there's these expectations. Like, for us, we're at work at 7 in the morning, and some days we're not leaving until 6 o'clock in the evening, and then you gotta go to chow or something, because they have to release you for chow at some point. But it gets overwhelming at times. You're waking up early every morning. Sometimes you even got to wake up earlier, because they're like, all right, well, you need to go PT with your section or your platoon or whatever. And I mean, so you're having these long days, and what you were saying, where you just want to come back home at the end of the day and just sit down and relax. Well, that's the habit I got into, and I didn't realize how much of kind of like a big boy, big girl game it is when you're in the fleet, because when you're going through training, you have all these people that are making you exercise.
Right.
But once you get to the fleet, the unit doesn't always have time, or they don't put the effort into ensuring that you PT with the unit.
So it's a personal thing.
Yeah, so you have to work out on your own. So, and that's something I didn't do, because I would be so tired, because of course what I'm doing is I'm lifting boxes off the stacks, and I'm putting them on pallets, taking them outside, getting them
physical job.
Set up. Yeah, it's a very physical job.
10, 12-hour shifts, essentially working at a factory.
Yeah,
or
it's
a warehouse.
Yeah, and
what
I'm working in is an earth covered magazine, so it's a warehouse basically. Just like this concrete bunker in the ground, and I'm pulling all this ammo out, and putting it on pallets, and then putting it on the stacks and stuff like that, so I'm moving and working
and
all day, and it's in the California sun, so in summertime it's hot, so
to try to work out after that
it's just like, no, I've been lifting boxes all day, I ain't going to work out. And some Marines they do, and they and those are the ones who are motivated to work out anyway. They're the ones who are going to the gym before. Yeah. Whereas, like, I mean, I said it in the previous podcast, I was more fit before the military than I was once I got in, because I was so exhausted all the time. And once you're mentally drained,
it doesn't matter how physically able you are. If you're mentally not there and not after it,
I mean, you just want to be done at the end of the day. And I mean, it became so hard sometimes, like I almost felt like I couldn't deal with it. And I mean, I'll probably cover that specific topic later on, maybe we both will. And
I'm definitely keeping it very light this episode, just because this is a story about how we got to where we are now, for the better. There's obviously bad times through those years working at that store. And obviously I was in and out of a long-term relationship. 3 years is a long time to be in a relationship. Yeah. No time doesn't mean anything if you don't know the person. But 3 years is a lot of time to pass where you build this person, and then you all of a sudden that's not there anymore.
Yeah.
So you have to rebuild yourself and what you expect in a relationship, and expect long term, and not just relationship, but also personally, what keeps you going. So I mean, like I said, definitely there's obviously darker moments that I don't know how I'll talk about, how I will word, especially with these probably being seen by friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to upset them. I mean, most of them know what I went through and how I got through it. But I lost family members within those years, that on top of the breakup, that I say breakup because it was the breakup, because it was my first real relationship that I knew.
So much time,
right,
and effort,
and then it just changes. Your whole life is uprooted, and you have to start again. And I mean, I just did not handle it well. I did not go about it the right ways. Probably should have seeked out like professional help to talk me through it. You get family members and stuff saying, "Oh, it'll be okay." But if anybody's been in that situation, that doesn't mean shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it does not matter how many people tell you it's going to be okay, you'll get through it. If you don't personally believe that, it doesn't matter. It does, like, it's good to hear it, but for me, it wasn't, because it pushed me further away.
Well, it was like that's what they're supposed to say.
Yeah,
and
that's the way I thought of it.
Patronizing,
Mm-hmm.
like.
They're like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Well, it was to me.
Yeah.
It was a big deal to me. So when they just shrug it off and like, oh, you'll be okay,
Mm-hmm.
they don't realize how much it's like, I'm not doing okay.
And I do remember times where, I'd talk to you, through Facebook
and I hit it a
Messenger,
lot too. I mean,
text or whatever.
People would ask me, and I got to the motion of always like, yeah, it's fine, it's no big deal. Like, I was mad or upset, but it's all good now. Same time, it was not all good. And, I'm hiding it at that point because I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm in my motions of coping with it my ways, which are not good ways to cope with something. But like I said, I don't want to. I don't want to bog down this episode, because a lot of good happened too. So I don't want to focus on the bads, and I don't focus on the bads now in real life, or like past that. I say real life, but like, I don't focus on the negatives now. I try to focus on anything positive in any situation every day. I look for that silver lining, and it keeps me going. As long as I can have one good moment a day, I'm doing all right,
Yeah.
So my entire day could be crap, but I just highlight the best moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, it took me a long time to really learn that, because,
Me too, and I still struggle with it too. So it's not like it's, oh, now I'm all better now.
Yeah.
There's still days when I wake up and I don't do well. Some days you just have good days, and I guess you could label it as depression.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to. I don't like to put a label on it.
Yeah.
Everybody feels different about titles or labels.
Mm-hmm.
But some days you just wake up not yourself. Like, you still carry that weight.
Yeah.
Even if you are better 90% of the time, you have those bad days.
Yeah. I mean, I struggled with it for a long time, and being with that unit was, I think, what really, like, did it to me, just the environment we were in. It was really toxic, and
And you can't
I was
leave.
not happy there. Yeah, and I didn't have a choice.
It's not like me here, when I could have changed my entire situation. I could have done things about it, but I put myself back away from it, and I just was like, this is what I have to deal with. But there was no, like, well, I'll change my job.
And of course, like, and especially as like a younger, more junior Marine, it was like, I felt helpless. There was no, it felt like at some points there was nobody looking out for me, because a lot of the NCOs at the time, it just felt, to me, and it may have just been, because I was new, and every, new guy or girl feels like this, but it was like, wow, they're just picking on me because I'm new, and
right.
I hate it, and they hate me, and, I get treated like dirt around
You start
here.
putting these thoughts in your head.
And you almost, like,
you build a scenario.
work yourself up to the point where you're so unhappy, and, that might have been what I did to myself or whatever.
But there's no time for you to take yourself out of that situation.
Yeah, I mean, and you live with these people.
Yeah.
They're the NCOs are, down the hall or, whatever. And it's like, it gets rough sometimes. And I was fortunate enough to have a fantastic roommate, which, I mean, I'd like to think we're still friends to this day, but, I mean, who kind of helped me through it in a way. Like, he didn't know I was going through it. I kept my demons to myself, and that's unfortunately what I've done all my life. But I kept it to myself. But there was people that were helping me through it, and there was one NCO, and that was my section leader, who he probably didn't even know it, but I mean he saved my life, and I won't dive into that, but just showing where I was that first like real year I was in the military, I was not necessarily in a good place.
Right.
But then, as I got more opportunities to do things, so I got to go out and do a pre-deployment exercise called ITX, Integrated Training Exercise, and I got to kind of put on, how good I was at my job, what all I'd learned, and, how I could perform, in a field/wartime type environment, where we're working almost completely around the clock. And I did a great, I like to think I did a great job, and I heard from the NCOs out there I did a great job, and that set me up for me eventually getting promoted to corporal, which was probably one of the biggest if not the biggest achievement, of my entire career in the military, as well as, one of the most important things in my life.
Yeah.
Because it really set me up for who I am today. Because once I started being put in charge in a leadership position,
which honestly stems back to even our airsoft time. It's like that was who we were,
and
was the leaders.
And I think that's what I need, and
you're a leader. You're a leader type personality.
And if I don't have people to lead, it kind of like puts me in a...
You're not a follower.
In a bad way.
You're definitely a person that
I don't
wants
like to think I'm an A-type person, like an A-type personality, but I kind of am. Which
essentially, I guess we both are, because I went into management.
Yeah.
So management is the leadership role. Mm-hmm. You have to tell these people when they're going to be at work. I made schedules. I hired people. I fired people. Like you build a team. Mm-hmm. So essentially, both of us were.
Yeah. We were leaders.
Yeah.
And like I said in the previous episode, having that experience just in the airsoft, helped me in ways that I didn't understand at the time, but looking back on, it's like, man, I don't know, how I got here, and then I'm like, wait, and I see things that I did in the past, leading that group, organizing, and, getting like early on practice of, organization and task management and everything, through airsoft, and then bringing that experience into the military. And it sounds like something
which
silly.
Is just building on it.
Yeah, which, in the military taught me how to really, really do that.
And harness it.
Yeah.
In a way to use it effectively.
And,
we were not effective leaders in airsoft.
Obviously.
There was bad times and good times. So, I'm assuming the military probably just made you harness it to where you knew how to use it.
It taught me how to use it a little better. And obviously I'm not perfect, and I'm never going to claim to be, but I did my best while I was in, and the best thing I could do, I found, for my Marines, my subordinates, was to be there for them in a way that only a few of my NCOs coming up were for me. Mm-hmm. So if I could help any...
You took what you didn't get
and
put it towards them, so they didn't get in the same situation you were.
So I always approach situations, especially when I got out to Okinawa with my new unit, and I had...
And of course, that was a big change too. That, we haven't really addressed it, but you did go to Japan for
2 years.
2 years. So 2 years of your time gone. You weren't even in the States. You were, that's a whole different experience to leave the States and to be in a different culture and environment.
Yeah.
I've never been in that situation, so I can't speak on any of it, but I'm sure that was a whole mentally game changer for you too to get out of.
Yeah, and especially it's just kind of every time you moved in the military, it was very scary. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say, and maybe not scary, but very stressful, because you're like unsure about everything. You got these orders that tell you need to be here at this time, or else you're getting NJP. You're getting, at least some money or something taken away.
Right.
Because you weren't where you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's called unauthorized absence. So it's always stressful, because you're like, all right, I got to get all my stuff together. I got to make sure my tickets and check out and all this stuff.
Also emotional too, though, because the people that are there that aren't leaving,
and they're your
relationships
friends,
that you've built up
and
are just maybe nowadays you have Facebook and stuff, you could stay in touch, but imagine years ago, that was, once you left, that was it.
Yeah, you didn't know if you were going to see them again. Yeah. You probably weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And I also thank the military, before continuing, for the different types of people that I've got to meet throughout my career. I was so, I don't want to say sheltered, but growing up in southern Kentucky, there's basically everybody's kind of like the same culture.
Right.
At
least on the part you were in. I mean, I remember, when I switched high schools, I went from Warren East, which was mainly white American that wasn't really different cultured, to I went to Central, which was in town, and I got a lot of different cultures of people that have moved to the country and stuff. So there was Bosnians, there was Mexicans, there was African Americans. Like, they were all together in the same school, and that was my biggest moment. I realized my best features, I feel like, culturally, like I opened myself up to just hang out with anybody. I didn't care what they looked like. I didn't care who they were or what they brought to the table or who they were or what they were into. It turns into you're just friends with who you're friends with.
Yeah.
You don't look at any of that. And that was one of my favorite things, changing schools, that I'm so glad I did. It didn't grow up in such a sheltered, not knowing any different cultures or anything. It was you learn. So you learn different holidays that they celebrate every year, and you're like, where are they at? And they're like, oh, they celebrate this, so they don't have to come to school today. And it's like, it's so experiencing all that was great for me. To see other cultures.
Well, I got to meet people from all over the country, and some people who had joined the military to gain citizenship into the U.S. So I got to meet all these different people from different walks of life. Inner city in the Bronx, New York, to southern Georgia, out to California and Hawaii, people from all over the country and parts of the world, so I got to kind of make friends with these people and learn their ways of life, and it kind of opened me up to, like, I'm not this specific like special type person almost. It's there's so many different people in the world that know so many different things and are going through so many different things that and especially when I went over to Japan and seen how different that culture was, it was like, wow, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
And
you realize how small you really are.
Yeah.
I feel like.
And I can't imagine, the kind of thing about, like, astronauts who go to space and stuff. I mean, I already think I'm, this big.
Yeah.
But, now, those people who go up into space and stuff, they gotta think they're even smaller,
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot, and I would love to continue traveling, until I'm dead. Seeing different parts of the world
and appreciating
different people and cultures and seeing different places. It's incredible, and I encourage anybody who wants to travel to do it. Don't think about it. Just, obviously give it the monetary considerations you need to, but go do it. Don't put it off. Don't wait. Go do it. Because while I was over in Japan, and I'm so thankful the military gave me the opportunity to go, I got to meet incredible people, see a culture that is just completely different from my own. I got to try different foods, see beautiful parts of the world. And I mean, at one point, and I'm sure I'll discuss this in a later episode, but I got to hike Mount Fuji, and it was...
That in itself is quite the milestone.
Yeah, it's just a milestone of being able to do it, but then, not being prepared enough for it, obviously, in terms of, like, the gear that I brought, and getting soaking wet and cold and all that. But
once again, not realizing what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. Not thinking through another decision very much. But getting to do it, I mean, was just incredible, and I would do it again, maybe, with more rain gear.
Yeah.
But, and I would just love to continue traveling and just experiencing new cultures if I can.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and maybe once you guys have seen these, you always obviously have seen us doing the bro down stuff on the in-between weeks, and we definitely want to do that more. To maybe we just go to Comic-Con for a week, or maybe we travel somewhere exotic to us, to go and see somewhere, and we bring our significant others, and we just, experience something that we don't experience on a regular basis. I would love to bring you guys with us for those moments.
Yeah.
And just live life, for us to live life, and maybe it gives you some incentive to get out and just experience something.
Yeah, to live your life too.
It doesn't have to be crazy. Like, I catch myself sometimes, like, when I'm off, like, maybe I'll just go to the park and I've got my Switch I'll go walk a little bit and I'll find a tree and I'll just sit and play my Switch for a little bit. It gets me out of the house. It's something unusual that I don't do on a regular basis, but it's something small. So that's what I'm saying. You don't have to travel the world to live your life to the fullest. You just do something that makes you happy.
Yeah.
And
I think that's what we've really learned through these years apart, through our turbulent times and, not being sure of ourselves and, maybe angry at ourselves or the world or whatever. We've learned to appreciate the
little things more than anything.
And, to just wrap up my time in the military, while I was over in Japan, I, probably made some of the closest friends outside of yourself that I'll ever have, because we're all on this tiny rock together, this island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and
and you realize you guys aren't so different.
Yeah.
Like, different parts of the world, but you guys come together and do the same thing day in and day out. You realize you all have something so much in common, but yet so different too.
Yeah, and what I learned the most, and I'm probably just reiterating what we just said, but was to get out and just experience something new. So I tried weird foods while I was out there, things I never would have thought I would ever eat.
But they're normal there, right?
Yeah.
It's just,
and then
you're sheltered.
I got out and did karaoke in front of, it wasn't a big crowd, because we went to kind of a hole-in-the-wall karaoke
It was to
spot.
you.
But kind of getting up and singing in front of even your friends, and then, like the local population there that would come in and also enjoy some karaoke. You get nervous at first, but then it becomes fun. And you see, like, especially, you're out there and you're drinking a little bit with the locals, and they're having just as good of a time as you, and you might not even be able to talk to them, and they're, they might not understand English and you might not understand Japanese, but you're smiling and laughing and having a good time and everybody's singing. And experience things like that in your life, because I think when you get old and you can't do everything anymore,
and that's when you have to sit there and think. At least you can sit back and think,
I did this while I could, and that to me will
not to have the regrets.
I'm getting a little emotional just thinking about it, because it literally is without a doubt the best times I've had in my life was out there, up to this point at least, and I'm sure I'll have.
But you brought it with you, so you realize those are the best moments, and you brought it back with you when you got back here, and you still want to do those things. So it's not. It
opened my eyes to not being scared. Just take that leap. Try something new. Whether it's something new to eat, something new that you've never done before, in terms of like hobbies or sports or whatever whatever you're thinking about doing, give it a try. And
I think everybody experiences that in a way somehow. Mine was not the military, obviously, but when I met my fiance now, we met online. I had actually deleted the app. I was done with the app. I was like, if this one doesn't work out, I'm not doing the online dating anymore. The week before we met, I had a trip planned to Chicago with my dad and my stepmom, and I really wasn't looking forward to it, because I was like, great. My dad and I, at this point in my life, obviously I've been going through some darker stuff through those years after high school, and I was just like, great, a week with him, like he's going to want to do these things and not understand what I'm going through. And we went and had an absolute blast. Like you said, doing something you're just not used to changes your whole mentality. So just driving from Kentucky to Chicago, the rest stops we stopped at, the windmills that you see before you get there, like you see so much before you even get to the location. And by the time we got to Chicago, I was so happy. Like, just getting out and doing something new changed my whole mind and whole process. Obviously, I haven't said this on here. A lot of my friends and family know I struggled with alcohol a lot up to this point. I had sobered up a week before going to Chicago with my dad and them. And when I come back from Chicago, I didn't want to drink anymore. I realized on the way back from Chicago, this is what I want to do. Like you said, I want to travel. I want to experience life in different ways. I don't care who's with me. I don't care what I do. As long as it's something I look forward to, that's what I want to do. So we get back from Chicago on a Sunday. I've talked to my fiance now for about a week through Snapchat and the dating app.
Yeah.
We have a date Monday, and the rest is history in a way. You know, like without getting into the relationship deeply, we are to where we are now. But 3 weeks into the relationship, I'd had a vacation planned for 3 months before I even went on a Chicago trip that week. It's the same week that her birthday trip on a cruise was. And she did invite me to go on a cruise after just being together for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
She was like, do you want to come with me? And I was like, I have the week off, sure. So within 3 weeks, I was on a cruise to Mexico. So that in between time, I went from sobering up, just going nowhere in life, to the Chicago trip, to first date, to 3 weeks later, getting I didn't even have my birth certificate. I'd lost it. I didn't need it for anything. I just didn't have it. So I had to order it to get it in time to board the ship. You have to either have a passport or a birth certificate to get on the boat. So I was traveling to New Orleans. We drove to New Orleans from Kentucky, which is like 10 hours.
Yeah.
In a car with no air. My air did not work in my car at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Awful experience, you would think.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best experiences we've had in our relationship is because we had the windows down. I got fried on my arm.
Side, yeah.
Because it was so hot that I had my hand out. And by the time we were probably about an hour away from New Orleans, we pulled over at a rest stop. And I was like, I've got to put sunscreen on at this point because my shirt color was what my arm color was. I was fried. I couldn't touch it. It hurt so bad. I'm surprised I didn't get like peeling. It did peel, but like I didn't get like blisters from how burnt it was. But it was the only option we had. It's in September on the way to New Orleans. It is nothing but hot, sticky awfulness. But we had a blast. We sung the whole way to the radio, to our songs. Yeah. And her family went with us. It wasn't like we were just the two. Her family was going with her on the cruise. So they were in the car in front of us. And they actually filmed us a couple times, like us back there just singing. They could see us like having a great time. And just, like I said, I went from being an alcoholic, like short term. I'm not going to like act like it wasn't what was going on, but I went from being an alcoholic to this person that I'd only dreamed about being, to go on these trips into. I never thought I'd be in Mexico. Like we went to Mexico, swam with dolphins. All of these things just happened so fast, and it just healed me.
It's what you
mentally.
Needed.
Yeah, mentally it just healed me. She healed me. The experiences healed me. And the person I am now, and how I'm so happy now, is seeing that just going out and doing new things and trying new things is honestly the best medicine I could have ever had.
Yeah.
You know, I could have went and talked to somebody about things. I think it would have made it worse. I could have shut it all in, never done anything, would have been worse. I could have been pushed to do other things, probably hated it, but just doing it on my own time and my own scale,
in your own way,
was the best medicine for me.
Yeah.
To get out of that rut. Yeah,
I mean, without a doubt, that I agree with you 100%. That, and you know, I still had, of course, my bad times at while I was out in Okinawa. I did want to leave the military. I knew I did not want to be in the military anymore. It just wasn't for me. And the military's not for everybody. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and talk crap about it because it wasn't an overall bad experience.
You got through it though. You can talk about it after getting through it. I feel like
I was going to ensure I did my job and I did it well, and then I did not do the wrong thing. And I did my job to the best of my abilities while I was in, and I performed to the best of my abilities while I was in.
Like you said, some people in it for 4 years and leave, great. If they're in it for 20 years, great. It's each personally.
It isn't for everybody. The people that it is for, hey, go for it. Do the 20 or the 30. I mean, if it's for you, it's for you. If not, do your 4, do it honorably, follow the rules,
and fight through it.
And get to the end. Because at the end of the day, they can't stop time. If you signed a 4-year contract, you said, hey, I'm going to do this, so stick with it.
And that's a good characteristic.
And that's the best advice that my dad ever gave me was, if you're going to do this, son, do it. Don't back out of it. And I'm thankful he told me that. Because that kind of every time I would be like, man, I just don't want to do this anymore. I don't care. It'd be like I'd hear my dad's voice in my head. You can't back out, son. You gotta see it through. And I did.
And you're happy you did.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. I don't think I could ever forgive myself if I had done something stupid.
Got out of it early.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or dishonorably or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like
anyway,
just not.
you know. But you know, so kind of, and in between all this time that I'm gone, I was able to come home on leave. Once a year, I would come home either 2 weeks or towards the end, I would have so much leave I'd come home for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And once a year, it was always the same time, it was about October time frame, and I would come home and I would see everybody. And you were saying, you know, I'd be so busy because, of course, when you come home on leave, everybody's like, oh, come see me, come do this, come do that. And so you're bouncing around all over the place. You don't even really have time to relax.
Yeah.
You know? And so there were times where we could hang out, you know, a bunch. And then there was times where, like you said, I only came and hung out with you one time.
For the most part, it was like, we even, like, a couple of the buddies and stuff. I remember we went to, I want to say Larry's Pizza, didn't we?
Yeah, and we kind of sat there and played some games. And
yeah, they have
pizza.
the arcade, and then they have the pizza buffets. So, I mean, it wasn't even like one-on-one time to catch up. Because obviously I was going through stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have time to talk to him about it I wasn't going to talk about it through Facebook or Messenger or anything. Because, I mean, it's just, how do you talk about it, that kind of thing, you know, over. And you had your own things going on too, which I wouldn't learn until you got back. You know, I didn't know that you kept it in.
Yeah, I definitely kept
a lot more than I did, obviously. But I think it's crazy that both of us experienced the same situations, but in completely different situations.
Yeah.
So like we both went through, hard times, depression, or issues like that. But didn't even realize the other one was. I mean, you knew things were going on, but I don't think you realized until you got
how
back
bad it was,
how the extent of what things had gotten to.
Yeah.
Of course, when you got back for real, for good,
yeah,
I was already with my fiance. We didn't mention this in any of the videos before now or any of the podcasts, but the plan was when we got out of high school was we were like, we're going to be roommates. We're going to be...
Yeah, we were going to move in together.
Yeah, and
we're going to be best friends living together. And
YouTube and whatever we wanted to do. And then, he goes to the military, and it's like, well, crap, now I've got to wait 4 years, and I didn't have any idea what those 4 years were going to do. And anybody that gets in a relationship obviously realizes that having your best friend in the house with you during a new relationship is not the best option for either or. You know, so like there was times when I wanted to hang out with him, and there was times I wanted to hang out with her, and they're never at the same time that either of you had time. So we had this big goal of like, we're going to move in together, and we're just going to have our own place, and we're going to split everything 50-50.
Yeah.
But then the rest of life just hits you, and you're like, well, that wasn't going to work. Or that isn't going to work. But you did. I mean, you did stay with us for...
a couple months.
A couple months at least. And I mean, you didn't have a girlfriend at the time at all. So you were, you know, going out on the weekends and trying to fit back into civilian life.
Yeah. And I'll say that you can, especially if you go in right out of high school and that's like all you know, in the first part of your adult life, it is kind of hard. And to get back into the kind of
4 years is a long time.
Well, the swing of things, because when you're in the military, sometimes you're not exactly with the mainstream society, you know.
Especially when you're in Japan. Mm-hmm. So 2 years you were not even in the States. So
yeah, when I came home on leave one time, I found out that you could go to Walmart and have your groceries given to you, like, so you just go pick them up.
Click this started when you were gone.
Yeah, and I was like, what? Like, this is so weird. And just other stuff like that. I'd come back to Bowling Green, and there would be new restaurants popping up all over the place, and and businesses and stuff that I didn't remember, and other stuff closing, and it was so crazy. Every time I came home, stuff would be different. Whether I was just living in California or I was all the way over in Japan, and that was just crazy to me, seeing how much everything would change. And, I'll forever be grateful to you and to Gabby for allowing me to stay here.
Let's reiterate. For sure, she had no problem with him being here. She was just comfortable in her ways. Obviously, it's her home too. At this point, she had moved in with me. And so we were both here. And so, but she completely was fine with, she knew that if it was her friend in the same situation, that I would be cool with her friend being here. Yeah. To give her a place to stay until they got on their feet. Mm-hmm. So there was no problem there. It's just a matter of she was comfortable in her own home on her own, and then here's somebody that she doesn't know. I mean, at this point, you've been gone all these years. I've only talked about you. Yeah. But she hadn't actually really met you except I think once. I literally think it's just one time you come back. Oh. But it was a dinner with my entire
like your own
family, my entire family just threw this whole shindig at overtime where he was leaving, I think, the next day or this next week.
Mm-hmm.
So my family was like, I mean, he's been close. I mean, we were close growing up. So
Yeah.
my whole family was like seeing him off, and we'll see you when you get back. And then, at that time, you didn't know that you were going to get out.
As early as I did.
Yeah. So it was one time. So she had no idea who you were, what you were into, what you want to do, other than what I had mentioned to her.
And to kind of also piece together some stuff, and we're kind of encroaching on the end of the episode, so I'm going to try and whiz past it real quick. But I had an extension on my contract, so I went off to MSG school, and in order to do that, in between my time of living in California and going to Japan, I had signed on saying I was going to go to Marine Security Guard school, and I dedicated an extra year on my contract so I could go to that school and then go serve on that detail.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I ended up not passing the school, and so that's why I went out to Japan, but I still had that extension on my contract, so I thought I was going to be in an extra year. However, about this time last year, our career planner, which is kind of like our recruiter and our guy who covers re-enlistments and stuff like that, he asks me if I wanted to get out, because what I wanted to do was extend my time over in Okinawa at the time. So in order to do that, he had to cancel that current extension on my contract. So he asked me, well, do you just want to get out? And I was like, yes. And it kind of took me for a surprise, because at first I was told I couldn't do that.
Right.
So when he told me that, I was like, well, heck yeah, let's do it. And that kind of also takes me to the point of why I was so kind of unprepared, why I didn't have a place to stay and all that.
Yeah, which we had already talked about even before I met my fiancée, Gabby, is that...
if I could stay with you.
It wasn't, at this point, we had never talked about him staying for a long period of time. It was for him to have a place to stay, not under his family's roof, to where he could just be himself, getting back, and on his feet. So it wasn't never going to be a long-term thing, even at this point, once you had been in the military. Yeah. It was,
just
until
temporary.
you got everything sorted out and help you move into wherever you plan to have. If you plan, at this point, you didn't know if you're going to go to college or if you're going to start working or what you were going to do. But it just gave you a safe place to put your stuff and to sleep at night, not having to stress over anything. Because I was paying the bills without you here. So there was never an issue of like, well, it's going to cost more, this, that, a little bit more on utilities, but not enough for it to matter. Yeah. So there was no like regulations of being here. It's just, take your time, figure out what you want to do, and just don't stress over where you're staying.
Yeah. And I mean, because coming out of the military, I didn't want to move back in my family because I've been moved out for 4 years. Yeah. And I didn't want to be that guy who...
And you're an adult too.
Moved back in with his parents, that type of thing. And
it was a pride thing for you.
And some veterans do that. And if your support community is your family, and that's what you need to do is move back in with your parents or, your guardians.
Yeah, don't feel ashamed of it.
Don't be ashamed of it. That's just something I had the opportunity to not do because, you were there for me.
And my house, the way it's set up, I had this is where we're recording now, is actually his room, which was my office at the time. So I just took everything out of my office and moved it out and put a bed in here and a dresser and just emptied out pretty much to where it was your space for two months or so. Yeah. So it wasn't like he was imposing on anything other than my stuff. So it didn't impose on her or any of her property and stuff. Yeah. So it was just as long as I was cool with not having my office for a few months, which I did at the time. I wasn't planning on doing any YouTube or anything at this point. So yeah, it was just mainly it was my space that we were losing. And I was fine with that. If I could help him out for a couple weeks, couple months, so be it. I felt like it was worth it to me as a friendship. Like, yeah, sure, you can have a whole basement.
You do things for your friends, and in a heartbeat, I'll do the same for you.
Yeah, there's times
anything similar.
There's times when you were moving, or I've moved stuff here at the house, and you just call one or the other and be like, hey, can you help me move this week or this day? I'm like, yeah, sure, I work around it, and we'll figure something out.
Remodeling your house a little bit.
Yeah.
And, I come up here if you needed me, and I did.
Yeah.
So and to get to kind of like the core of what we've done over these past 3 episodes is showing like our friendship, where we started, kind of how our friendship developed, and then up to the point in our lives where we're still best friends. And to explain in short, our friendship is more than friends. Like almost, we're family, if not more than that.
The saying, brother from another mother,
Yeah.
I guess would definitely be, mother and father.
Yeah.
But definitely, like, it turned into, even my blood brother, will say that William and I are closer than him and I are. Not in anything bad, it's just...
I mean, we're so similar. And
same age,
yeah,
same. So you get that, this is my friend, this is my best friend,
mm-hmm.
and anything he needs help with, you do it for him. Like I said,
and vice versa.
It's a brother relationship for sure. And I'm closer with William than I am some of my family.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that's the connection we had. And, it's hard to put our whole story in 3 episodes, which is why we would continue
talking about it throughout.
But this was like a way to really let you in up to now on a lot of the big points.
And obviously, to see while we're doing it, and
also for us to get a start. I mean, this is our 3rd episode, and I feel so much better at this point filming and talking about it than I did the first episode,
right.
for sure. This is all new to us, like this whole camera setup, the microphone. This is
my idea to do the podcast, but you have been doing YouTube,
for at least,
I mean, on and off for years, but really getting into it here recently, mm-hmm. and being really good at it, you know, and just having that passion, that fire for it. So,
and I think YouTube or any social media thing, a lot of it is just going for it. Like, mm-hmm. you're not going to be great right off the bat. You're not going to have great content. I mean, my content on my channel is still not what I started with. Like,
right.
I deleted all of my stuff when I first started because I was embarrassed by it. It was terrible. The quality was awful. My computer and stuff wouldn't record right, and I put it up anyway. So now I went back and deleted it all up to a certain point. Even the stuff that's on there now is bad. Audio stuff's messed up. But
you can definitely see the progression.
Yeah. But as long as you have a goal in mind and you feel like you can do it, go for it. And that goes back to, like you said, just travel, just do whatever. YouTube is that way for me. If I'm going to do it, I've got to go for it. Mm-hmm. I've got to put the effort in to see if it'll go somewhere. I will never know if it'll go somewhere if I don't try to make it go somewhere. And I by no means know what I want to do on YouTube. I just want to record. I want to make content and do something. And so this podcast idea is like, no, I never thought about doing a podcast before you brought the idea up. Mm-hmm. But I was like, yeah, let's go for it. I mean, the only way we're going to know if this podcast goes anywhere is if we just go for it.
Yeah.
And we actually... when we start talking about the podcast, we talked for probably 4 hours about doing a podcast, and I threw the idea out there. Towards the end, I was like, "This is like a podcast about a podcast," because that's essentially what they're for. Is they just talk, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed what we've talked about, and if you guys have certain moments you would like us to talk more on, I'm fine with talking about anything.
Yeah.
To an extent, we don't want to be political or religious to a point that
we don't want to cover that type of stuff.
We want to be fair to everybody.
This is just for everyday people who are just trying to live their lives.
Yeah.
And just sharing funny or serious moments.
And we would love to hear moments from you guys as well. I mean, maybe your friends or family that know us mention certain moments, and eventually we'll talk about those moments in further detail and. Just honestly just talk to you guys, and hopefully you guys can relate to everyday situations, and maybe you guys struggled with stuff as well. So maybe our ideas of how to get through it help you guys through it. To me, that's the biggest takeaway from it, is if I can help somebody, if they enjoy listening to this and it makes their day better, that's a win for me. That's all I could ask for. And that's the same way with content on YouTube. It's just as long as if one person's enjoying it, I'll keep doing it. It's like, as long as they're enjoying it, that's what I get enjoyment out of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I love how, you've been so passionate about it here recently, and you've really been getting back into it. And that's what kind of inspired me, and to come up with this idea, because it's something we can do together. And I mean, we would already sit down and talk for hours whenever we would hang out.
So why not just record it?
Yeah, why not record it and see if anybody wants to listen?
Yeah.
And on top of that, there was another reason. It's like, when you get older and you start forgetting certain things, this is a permanent record of
I see so many vloggers and so many people on YouTube that go back and watch their content, and it's emotional to them because they're like, I remember what was going on then when we filmed this. Maybe this happened or this happened. But it's something like I used to watch Roman Atwood every day,
Mm-hmm.
The best 15, 20 minutes of my life for those years after high school was a lot of just watching his video every day. It took me out of my personal situation and gave me happiness for 15, 20 minutes. And he's mentioned it several times in his videos of just, he goes back and watches them with his family, and he gets to see his kids grow up and his family. Obviously his mom passed away, and he can go back and watch for years of moments with his mom and stuff, and that is something you cannot get back. So just to be able to experience those moments again, I'm sure are priceless to him. And that's kind of what we can look back on this. If God forbid something happened to one of us throughout the years, obviously eventually one of us, but
or both of us,
or both of us doing stupid shit that we do, that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
But we can go back and experience at least their voice, the laughter, memories that spark up in our minds. Even talking about this and going back and rewatching it when we edit it, we're like, oh, remember when this happened or that happened? We still reminisce. So that's, like I said, as long as somebody's enjoying it, we obviously enjoy it. It's just learning how to do it and get on camera and talk about it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, I think we about covered up, as much as we can in this short amount of time, and just kind of giving you guys an insight into who we are as individuals and as best friends.
And so the next episode will be a different topic, no longer about a story about us, just stories. So
stories, just different topics and ideas. And if you guys want us to talk about anything in specific, shoot us a comment or a text message if you know us or anything like that.
Any way you can get in contact with us. I mean, there's several ways you can get in contact. The video will be on YouTube and also on Spotify,
Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, stuff like that. All your major places where you can find podcasts. And then you can check out our page on anchor.fm as well. That would be anchor.fm/Bake and Decker, all one word, all lowercase. So thank you guys for listening in, and we'll talk to you next week.